Hi there, Sleepless Guys here. I am going to take you through another one of my tracks on a track walkthrough today. This is Stay With Me. It's out now on Axiom Records. You can get a link to stream and buy it in the description. But I want to take you through what went into this project, how I made it, so let's jump right in. Okay, before we jump into the project, let's have a little listen to Stay With Me. So you can hear, this is the kind of intro bit. It's a very kind of nice melodic, sort of dreamy sound. I'll just fast forward through bits of the song. It's got this little LFO filter synth line running all the way through it. Kind of keeps movement going. It's nice pianos and chords. This little vocal comes in. Keep going. Then we have like a breakdown bit. The breakdown's here. Yeah, nice. Nice, huh? These little glitchy vocal bits. And then we jump back into a kind of main kind of body of the track. Yeah, this is where just push through, give us the last crescendo into the outro. So you get the idea. That's the track. You can go listen to the full thing if you want, but today we're going to jump in and see how we made it. So usually in these I kind of go through the arrangement bit by bit. I'm going to do that quite quickly today because a lot of this stuff you'll see in my other videos, but I want to jump into a few key parts in this track, mainly how I made that lead LFO synth line, what went into that and some of the automation in that. And I want to talk a bit about that kind of nice bass and some of those nice pads that kind of fill out this track and make it feel quite big. So let's start with, we'll start here with the drums quickly just to show you. Let's solo those. So I process there you go. This little wood block, see how much groove that's adding. It's really nice. So I wanted to create this kind of slightly organic feel. We've got a bunch of things, like we've got some shakers, we've got different, I'll just go back to this part again, a few different shakers working together with an off hat kind of, this is offbeat hat kind of, which is also made up of some shakers and a hat. There's about 3 parts to that actually, you can see there. We've got some little rides going. Slightly kind of, you can hear the compression, the sidechain compression on that. So if I take that off, you can hear it's breathing a bit more. But when that all goes into the track, when it all comes together, I want to create that sense of movement. So I put a little bit of sidechain on quite a lot of the instruments actually, and quite a lot of the drums in this piece of music. There's a nice little white noise thing in there. I did that just with a hi-hat, a close hat, and then using the vocoder on white noise on noise mode. Then a bit of delay and EQ, that kind of thing. So quite a simple thing to set up. I think that's just a little close hat again with a vocoder. So there's lots of, trying to create lots of, you can hear it's all together. There's lots of airy noises in here. So it's quite this soft sounding percussion, which is nice. All right, okay, that's what went into the drums. Oh yeah, kick is a sample here from this, I don't know how you say that, Bunker, Bivker, I don't know. BVKER is the sample pack. It's called Entropy. This is their the second kick sample. I actually really like this sample. I'm using it in quite a few tracks. It's just got the right amount of body on it, and not too long. You can see that I'm cutting it short there at 180. You could even cut it even shorter to 150. I want a nice, short, snappy kick sample, but I haven't done a lot with it. You can see there's an EQ curve. I'm just cutting some of the middle. That's at about the sort of, let me see where that is. Yeah, about 400 mark. And then boosting the body of it a bit. Haven't cut off the bottom. Sometimes I do, but in this I just thought it was sounding better without it. And then rolled a bit off the top. So nice, simple kick EQ. All right, let's move on to the bass. So in this track, you've got this really nice, I'm just actually gonna loop this so that I don't have to keep resetting it. Got these really nice analog bass chords. So this is two bass lines kind of gelled together. So at the bottom, you've got a sub, which I have used this preset from Bound to Divide, the Visions, his Visions pack on PML, and this is called Sub, just Melodic House Sub. It's really, just really nice, like straight up. I think it's just a kind of a straight up sine wave. So I've used that to give some body to the bass. You can see it all. That's all happening down in this area here, and then a bit of compression, a bit of limiting. Haven't processed that very much actually, because I just want it to create this kind of nice roundness. You could add a bit of saturation too, just to give it some more harmonics. But most of the harmonics on the top end are being driven by this bass line. So you can hear this has got a lot more going into it. So we've got this. This preset actually comes from one of the standard issue presets you get with Diva. It's called the Wool Hole. It's quite cool. I think I've messed around with it a bit, maybe changed the cutoff and some things, and just the shape of it a little bit. But other than that, it's pretty much as it comes, and that's cool. You then get this kind of, I've cut the bottom off, you can see there, so shave that off completely so that it doesn't clash with the sub. I got some filtering on there just for effects. Monoed any bass under 120. There shouldn't be a lot there because I've cut it, but anything there is, I want to have in mono. And then compression, limiting, and side chaining. It's interesting, I do tend to add more saturation to bass lines. So when I wrote this, I don't think I was doing that. But now in my more recent stuff, I've been adding much like chains of saturation. So when I do another track walkthrough, I can show you how I've done that. But you can hear this still sounds quite nice and fat and good, just because we've got sound selection right. You know, those two sounds gel together really nicely, and you can hear that sub is just about there. It's for feel really, rather than to hear it too much. And then I've got some processing here, just making sure that we're catching any peaks and limiting, just in case it's riding over the limiter. So it's just all to kind of hold it in place really, and make sure that we're getting quite a steady bass line. All right, so that's what goes into the bass. Let's have a look then at the synth. This is where this track, most of the action is happening up in this mid-range, which it should generally anyway, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the melody lines of this. So I'm gonna cut that out for a second, because I'll come to the melody on its own in a sec. But fundamentally, this track revolves around this chord progression the whole way through. So it's all just these three chords. And it's all built around these. So we've got things in here like string part, which we've used this free, amazingly, Spitfire Audio plugin. I use this quite a lot. It's an entire string, or it's an entire orchestra actually, for free. BBC Symphony Orchestra. And then I've just put this the key mapper thing here, and then that allows me to use this chord tools so that I can actually just create really simple chords. If I just knock that off, you can hear it just... It's just the single notes, and then... Perfect, lovely. Got the piano here. Piano is, again, one I use quite a lot from Spitfire. This is soft piano. I think this is like one of these that everyone uses at some point or other. It's beautiful, considering it's free. And then just a bit of processing on there, some saturation, a little bit of... This is an interesting one. This is on the piano. I don't want to create any artifacts from saturation, so I don't want to hear like any kind of distortion. It's just there for depth. So I've got decapitator on, very, very low, right? Basically kind of pretty much at like 2% or something. It's really, really dry. Then I've followed it up with a saturator. Okay, so that's the stock saturator. Again, 1-2%. Then the dynamic tube, very, very little of this, 2% wet. So we've got lots of little tiny bits of saturation, just adding some gentle harmonics, just to fill it out a little bit. But you can hear it's just... You have to hear it quite carefully, but it is there, just making it a tiny bit deeper. So then, yeah, we go into some limiting just to keep that under control. Let's see what else we've got here. This is a kind of this sound I'm using to create tension. So it's just a single drone. There's hardly in there at all. It's very good in the breakdown. Really comes out at this point. You can use all sorts of things here, like strings. You can hear I've got a string note as well, doing the same thing. It's all about building tension. There you go. So that'll help to just transition one part to the next. And then we've got some other bits here. These kind of nice little wafty pads, they're quite cool. And these sparkles, they come in here in the breakdown. This stuff is, this one's actually Anna 2. Using Anna 2 for this, a preset called Am I Alive? And then, so Am I Alive had an ARP on it already. So you can hear it's quite shuddery, shivery ARP. And then put that through another ARP, just to give it a little bit more sort of musicality. So that's quite nice. And then we've got a couple other bits here. Got some floaty, this is called Floating in a Dream actually. Preset from Tom Wolf's Lush's Pads pack. And this just adding a bit of depth, bit of contrast and texture. And these are the main pads. Then I've got a central one, a left one, a right one, because what I wanted to do is have it really fill out the entire sound spectrum. So I tried this where I was putting one down the center, then two slightly quieter on the sides. There's other ways you could achieve this, but this just seemed to work. And again, I'm using that Woolhall preset, so it matches the bass line. It all fits together really nicely. Okay, so let's come on to the main synth lead line. This one, there's a lot going on actually in this synth. It's got a lot of automation on it. It's working the whole way through the track, building and growing and developing. So the preset is actually one that was based on it's based on a preset called BS Pluckers, and then there's I called it BS Pluckers Ben Bomer because I think it sounds like a Ben Bomer synth line, but it was actually a little tutorial I got on YouTube, which I'll post a link to in the description. That was from Production Music Live, just showing you how to basically set this up and get it so you can run it through. Effectively, it's modulated really heavily, running through this LFO here, which is giving it this kind of like so both you can see the LFO is going through the cutoff, but also through envelope 1, so you get this kind of sense of it moving the whole time. So what I've automated then is the frequency cutoff, which you can hear there. Which is really nice. I've automated the decay so we can lengthen it. I've automated the attack, so I can like make it feel like it's dragging a bit, and then automated some delay. One thing I would say there, so that automation on the delay is basically controlling this dry wet knob here in a little delay module on the actual synth itself. So I did that because I could have automated it through the return channels, and that's another way of doing it. That would have meant that every time I cut off the dry wet knob, the delay would have kept going for a bit. But here I wanted to actually be able to cut it dead, to be able to cut it dead, right? So if you want to like be able to cut dead the effect, you have to put it on the channel. If you want to be able to, or well, you can put it on the channel. If you want to be able to let it run, then put it in a return channel is my general approach. Bit of panning on this to give it some more movement. It's all about sense of movement, this sound. And then on this effect rack here, onto this actually while this is playing in a second, but on the effect track you can hear some reverb. So I've done all this in parallel so that I can really affect it. Like I can dial in -7 dB of that reverb, right? And I can get exactly how much I want. And then on the reverb itself, there's a bit of sidechain compression from itself. So I'm sidechaining. This is actually quite smart, right? The way that I'm controlling this reverb. So I've got the reverb going, it's about 4.76 seconds. I've then got a sidechain compressor from itself. So every time it plays, it's cutting into the reverb sound. So that means that we're not getting this kind of washy mess of reverb. It's really tight. And then I've got another sidechain, this time just one that's synced to the kick, so that it's not, the tail of this reverb isn't interfering with any of the kick and the other instruments that we want to create. So we want to create that sense of movement and groove. So I've got that there on the reverb there. I've also put on this some parallel saturation. So that's just making it feel a bit bigger and fatter. And then there's the dry signal going through. So I've always got the dry signal alongside the parallel ones, hence the term parallel. They're running in parallel. So if you hear what that sounds like, maybe if I play it slightly quieter part, if I take all that off, this is the dry signal, this is the reverb, and this is the saturation. But if I take these two off, see how it starts to just feel quite washy already? There's a lot kind of happening in the sides that you don't really need. As soon as I put those two bits of control on, it takes that away. So really, this is a really good tip, and you can dial this in as much as you want. But I always set my chains this way when I'm trying to control an element like a lead, because you want the lead to be front and center, but you also want to feel the sense of it being in a space. So this is a very clever way of doing that. And then finally you got a bit of EQ. I've got a bit of OTT added to everything just to kind of help it like cut through a bit more. OTT just does a great job of doing that. Got some overall compression on it, just cutting off some of the peaks. A bit of soothe to make sure, so that's soothe here, just to make sure there's some harsh parts there that it's controlling those. I've got, again, kickstart, which is just doing a job of side chaining the whole thing now. We're side chaining everything, including the dry signal. And then finally a limiter and a bit of utility just to control volume on the overall chain. And then with the actual parts itself, you can see there's this kind of main part. If I open this up, which is like a little arpeggiated thing that runs the whole way through. When it kicks back in, I'm taking the same rhythm and just changing the top notes to give us a new melody, basically. And this is just creating interest. You can do this all the way through. Like, you'll see there's lots of little sections here where I'm just changing things ever so slightly just to keep interest going in the track. So yeah, the final piece of this then, that's the melody line. The final piece of this is, of course, the vocal. Now, I have a bit of confession to make about the vocal. You'll see this is all one big, like, bounced file. And that is because I had terrible troubles with this vocal. Something happened in the files and it kind of corrupted. And so I had all this set up. This was all a bunch of different files cut. So this was a vocal sample that I've cut up, used in lots of different ways. It's just that piece of vocal sample basically cut up and used in lots of different ways. I put it through a sampler, used it to just create interest. Unfortunately, I can't show you how I did all that because it's just such a mess and it wouldn't work. So you can just see here that I've just bounced it all out into one vocal sample. But it's a good idea. Like, I was just having terrible troubles every time I tried to export this track. It just wouldn't work. So sometimes you just got to go there, like, record in a part. I actually didn't render it. I just recorded it in as a whole part. And then that fixed it, allowed me to delete everything that wasn't working, and it allowed me to start being able to export this track again. So just something to kind of, you can bear in mind if you want to do it that way. So yeah, that is a track walkthrough of Stay With Me. That's what I've got in the track. Not much just to show you on the master. I do add these little things. This is quite interesting. I'm adding some on the mix bus itself. I'm adding a little bit of gain reduction at things like when if I just play the whole track. So when it transitions into a drop, even a very gentle drop like that, I've just got a little bit of a cut of just a dB and then kick it back into the normal volume. Doing the same with stereo width. So I'm just cutting the stereo width down to 90%, and then it all kicks back in. So you just get this very subtle sense of it being a bit bigger and a bit more centralized. A bit bigger and a bit wider as soon as it cuts in after the drops. And I do that all the way through the track. You can see, used it again here. You know, same thing. So yeah, other than that, yeah, that's Stay With Me. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoy it. If you've got any questions, drop them into the comments. I'm happy to answer them. I'll deal with them on future videos. And yeah, I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.